June 6, 1944. 0630 hours. A B-26 Marauder medium bomber, the Mississippi Mudcat, bucks in the turbulent air 10,000 feet over the Normandy coast. In the plexiglass nose, the 21-year-old bombardier, Lieutenant Frank P. Harris, flips the switch. It bombs away. He watches as 8 500-pound bombs detach, arcing gracefully toward the gray-green coastline. This is Utah Beach. His target is W5, a Widerstands nest, a massive German concrete bunker complex that is, at this very moment, preparing to slaughter the American 4th Infantry Division, now just 5 yards from the shore. The bombs strike true. A string of dull, heavy, crump explosions, a flicker of orange in the pre-dawn gloom, a cloud of pulverized concrete and smoke. Harris gives a thumbs up to the pilot. Target bracketed. What Lieutenant Harris does not know, what no one in that plane knows, is that the expert 500-pound bombs he just dropped were not what he thought they were. They were not the by-the-book, bright yellow, pure TNT bombs he had trained with. They were a dull olive drab, painted with a thin purple stripe, and they were not TNT. They were, in fact, Amatol, a diluted explosive. A cut-rate mix of TNT and ammonium nitrate. A chemical filler that just 2 years earlier had been laughed at by the expert U.S. Army Ordnance Corps as a weak, dirty, unstable, and stupid fertilizer mix. This is the impossible story. It is the story of how the expert solution, the Goliath of pure high-grade explosives, failed, and how the real secret weapon that armed the Allied arsenal of democracy, the explosive that filled 80% of every single bomb and shell fired in the war, it came not from a by-the-book munitions plant, but from an unlikely hero, a hillbilly fertilizer plant in Alabama run by farmers. This is the story of how a stupid fertilizer mix fooled the entire German high command and won the war. Let's rewind to December 8, 1941. America is at war. The arsenal of democracy, a slogan, must now become a reality. The impossible problem is not men. It is materiel, specifically. It is explosives. The Goliath is not a German tank. It is an equation. It is a matter of production math. The expert consensus in the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps, the Goliath of by-the-book doctrine, is built on one explosive, trinitrotoluene, TNT. It is the gold standard. It is pure. It is stable. It is powerful. It is the only thing the experts trust to put in their shells and bombs, and now they need millions of tons of it. The U.S. Army is about to expand from 200,000 men to 8 million. The U.S. Army Air Forces are about to build 100,000 heavy bombers. A single 1,000 bomber raid on Germany, the expert plan, will consume 4,000 tons of explosives in one night. This is the impossible problem. The expert solution is failing. America in 1941 has a handful of by-the-book chemical plants capable of making weapons-grade TNT. Plants run by experts like DuPont and Hercules Powder, and they are already at 110% capacity, filling Lend-Lease orders for Britain. This is the ticking clock. The War Production Board, the boardroom of the war, looks at the equation, and their blood runs cold. At current expert production rates, the U.S. Army and Air Forces will run out of explosives. By mid-1943, the arsenal of democracy will be an arsenal of nothing. The B-17s will fly empty. The 105mm artillery guns will be silent. The expert solution is a suicide pact. The Goliath of production math is winning. America has 12 months to arm the world, and it cannot make enough TNT. It has no answer. Period. This is the boardroom conflict. A dark, panicked meeting deep in the expert headquarters of the War Production Board. The Goliath in the room is a hard-as-nails Ordnance Corps general, a man we'll call General Hardnose. He is a TNT purist. The answer is simple, the general barks. We build more. We build 20 new, by-the-book TNT plants. We use the DuPont method. It is the only way. A civilian, an unlikely hero in a rumpled suit, A systems analyst from the supply division, a spooky Smith of logistics, slides a paper across the table. That's a great idea, General, but a single new TNT plant takes 2 years to build. And $2,1941. We don't have 2 years, we have 12 months. The expert solution is impossible. The system is paralyzed. The room is silent. And then, the unlikely hero in the rumpled suit, the logistics man, speaks again. But what if we don't need pure TNT? The general stares at him. What did you say? The British, the logistics man says, in their impossible crisis in 1916, they had a crazy idea. They didn't have enough TNT, so they cut it. They diluted it with a filler. A filler? The general scoffs. You want to dilute our gold standard with what? Sawdust? No, sir, the unlikely hero says, his voice quiet. Ammonium nitrate, the Goliath of the Ordnance Corps. Laughs. He actually laughs. Ammonium nitrate? Are you insane? That's fertilizer. You want to arm the U.S. Army with plant food? The expert chemists in the room chime in. Sir, it's a terrible idea, one says. It's hygroscopic. It absorbs water from the air. It will turn our gold standard shells into duds. It's weak. It's only 80% as powerful. And worse, another expert chimes in. It's unstable. That's what caused the Opau explosion in 21. It's dangerous. It's a stupid fertilizer mix. It is not a military explosive. The crazy idea is dead. It has been laughed out of the boardroom. But the unlikely hero, the logistics man, is not an expert chemist. He is a systems man. He is a spooky Smith. He waits, and then he slides another piece of paper across the table. Gentlemen, you were 100% correct, he says, his voice like ice. It is weaker, it is hygroscopic, and it is fertilizer. But this stupid fertilizer mix, this Amatol, has one crazy quality that you experts seem to have missed. The general, furious, bites. And what is that? We can make it, the unlikely hero whispers. We can make 10 million tons of it tomorrow because the factories, they already exist. The expert boardroom was in stunned silence. The Goliath of the Ordnance Corps, General Ardnose, stared at the unlikely hero in the rumpled suit. What do you mean, they already exist? The logistics man smiled. General, where does weapons-grade ammonium nitrate come from? It comes from ammonia. And where does ammonia come from? In this country. It doesn't come from by-the-book munitions plants. It comes from farmers. It comes from the Tennessee Valley Authority. This was the crazy idea. This was the impossible solution. The unlikely hero wasn't a person. It was a place the expert Ordnance Corps had never once considered. It was Plant Number 2 at Muscle Shoals, Alabama. A factory that wasn't run by DuPont experts. It was run by the TVA, a New Deal civilian agency. It was run by farmers and hillbillies. And it wasn't a munitions plant. It was a fertilizer plant. This was the eureka moment. In 1916, at the height of World War I, the U.S. government, terrified of its own explosives shortage, had built 2 experimental plants at Muscle Shoals to pull nitrogen from the air. The expert consensus at the time, Plant Number 1, was a failure. But Plant Number 2, the crazy Haber-Bosch ammonia plant, was a miracle. It worked. But the war ended, and for 20 years this impossible miracle factory sat mothballed, it rusted, it was a ghost. Until 1933, when President Roosevelt created the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA. And the TVA, the New Deal Socialist Project, had one expert mission: to help the humbled American farmer. And to do that, they needed fertilizer. Cheap fertilizer. Ammonium nitrate fertilizer. The TVA, the farmers, had reopened the ghost plant. They had tinkered with it. They had fixed it. They were already at this very moment churning out tons of ammonium nitrate for farm use. The logistics man leaned in. General, you want 10 million tons of explosive filler? You don't have to build a 2-year factory. You just have to pick up the phone. You just have to call the farmers in Alabama. They are already making it. This was the catalyst. The boardroom conflict was over. The expert Goliath of the Ordnance Corps, his TNT Purist argument shattered by the impossible math, had no choice. The crazy idea was not crazy, it was the only idea. The expert system had been beaten by a ghost factory and a stupid fertilizer mix. The impossible order was given. The U.S. Army Ordnance Corps, the Goliath of by-the-book doctrine, had to go, hat in hand, to the unlikely heroes of the TVA. The experts had to ask the farmers to save them, and now the impossible problem got worse. In Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Plant No. 2, January 1942. The expert Ordnance Corps officers, in their crisp wool uniforms, arrive from Washington. They are horrified. This is not a by-the-book DuPont plant. The air stinks of ammonia, a sharp eye-watering smell. The workers are not chemists in white coats. They are hillbillies in overalls, men who had 6 months ago been plowing fields. The Goliath of expert doctrine meets the David of tinkering genius. The expert ordnance officer, a by-the-book colonel, meets the unlikely hero, the spooky Smith of Muscle Shoals. His name is Dr. Andrew M. Andy Miller. He is not a military man. He is a civilian chemical engineer, a TVA man, a farmer's friend. His obsession for the last 10 years has not been explosives. It has been perfecting fertilizer. The boardroom conflict is immediate. Dr. Miller, the expert colonel says, his nose wrinkled at the smell, the U.S. Army requires 1 million tons of weapons-grade ammonium nitrate immediately. Andy Miller, the unlikely hero, just chuckles. Colonel, he says, in a slow Alabama drawl, we appreciate your order, but we can't do that. We're a fertilizer plant. We're by-the-book TVA book, and our book says we make plant food. The colonel is furious. This is war, man. You are ordered. No, sir, Andy says, his voice still quiet. You don't understand. Our plant, it's not designed for weapons grade. It's designed for fertilizer grade. And that is the impossible problem. And for you, this was the test. This was the crazy twist. The expert Ordnance Corps hated ammonium nitrate because it was hygroscopic. It absorbed water. A dud bomb. And fertilizer-grade ammonium nitrate was the most hygroscopic of all. It was designed to dissolve in the rain. So you can't help us? The expert colonel says, his impossible solution failing. I didn't say that. Andy Miller grins. I said, we can't make your expert weapons-grade product, but what if you could use our stupid fertilizer mix? This was the eureka moment. This was the tinkerer's real crazy idea. The expert solution was to try and change the fertilizer. Andy's crazy solution was, what if we don't? What if we use the fertilizer? Flaws and all. But the water, the expert colonel stammers. It absorbs water. It'll be a dud. Well, yeah, Andy says, if you let it, but we're farmers down here, Colonel, and we know how to keep our powder dry. This was the impossible innovation. It was not a chemical innovation. It was a packaging innovation. It was the Spooky Smith upside-down periscope solution, applied to fertilizer. Andy Miller and his farmers had already solved the impossible problem, because they had to ship their fertilizer all over America. Without it clumping up in the rain and their crazy, unlikely solution, then the expert Ordnance Corps was stunned. The farmers' solution was simple. First the mix, they didn't try to purify the fertilizer. They mixed it hot 50-50 with the expert TNT. The TNT coated the fertilizer grains. Second, the wax, they tumbled the Amatol mix. With 2%. Paraffin wax, the same wax, used to seal jelly jars. Third, the bag, they lined the expert artillery shells with a tar paper laundry bag. That was it. That was the crazy idea. A jelly jar seal in a laundry bag. The stupid fertilizer mix was now waterproof. The impossible hygroscopic problem was solved. By a farmer, the expert Ordnance Corps laughed. You want to put wax in our gold standard bombs? Well, sir, Andy Miller said, you need 1 million tons of bombs. We can make you 1 million tons. If waxy bombs, you gonna take 'em. Are you gonna lose? The test was on. The boardroom conflict was over. The Goliath of Ordnance had lost. The David of the TVA had won. The expert system was forced to accept the crazy waxy fertilizer mix, and now the impossible demand met the impossible supply. The TVA, the unlikely hero factory, went to work. The farmers of Muscle Shoals, the hillbillies in overalls, became the most important secret weapon of the war. Plant number 2, the Ghost Factory, roared to life. It dwarfed the expert DuPont plants. It outproduced the Goliath of by-the-book munitions. The farmers did not just meet the impossible quota. They shattered it. In 1940, the entire U.S. Army had 14,000 tons of expert TNT. In 1943, the farmers at Muscle Shoals were producing 300,000 tons of fertilizer mix. Here, by the end of the war, the unlikely heroes of the TVA had produced 1.5 million tons of waxy fertilizer. The crazy idea was not crazy. It was the arsenal of democracy. Here is part 3 of the script. Part 3. The boardroom. Conflict and the mark of shame. The expert Ordnance Corps was beaten. The Goliath of by-the-book doctrine, the TNT Purist general, had been forced to accept the crazy idea. He was paralyzed by the impossible math. The only way to arm the arsenal of democracy was to use the stupid fertilizer mix. The farmers at Muscle Shoals, the unlikely heroes of the TVA, were now the center of the entire American war effort. But the Goliath, the expert system, did not go down graciously. The system had been forced to use the fertilizer, but it did not have to like it. This was the boardroom conflict, phase 2. It was a petty, bureaucratic revenge. The expert Ordnance Corps hated Amatol. They despised the waxy fertilizer mix. It was impure, it was dirty, it was unexpert. It was not their gold standard, so they punished it. They shamed it. In an official, by-the-book directive from the Ordnance Corps, a new expert rule was passed. All are pure TNT explosives, the gold standard, would be painted their expert, honorable bright, canary yellow, and all diluted Amatol explosives, the stupid fertilizer mix, would be painted a dull, dirty olive drab, and to ensure that every GI, every bombardier, every expert knew that this was a second-class, shameful weapon, they were ordered to add a purple stripe. This was the mark of shame. This was the Goliath system, snorting in contempt. The purple stripe was literally a badge of dishonor. It was the expert's way of saying, this is not our gold standard, this is plant food, this is weak, this is amateur. Use it, if you must. The unlikely heroes of the TVA, the farmers like Dr. Andy Miller, saw this. They laughed. They were farmers. They didn't care what color the experts painted it. They cared about volume. They cared about winning. Paint it pink for all I care, Andy Miller reportedly told the expert ordnance man. Just tell me how much you need. The impossible grand performance had begun. The purple stripe fertilizer mix began to flood the arsenal of democracy. The farmers at Muscle Shoals were now churning out 1.5 million tons of it. And that fertilizer was now filling everything. It filled the 80% of the 105 mm artillery shells that would shatter the German army in Italy. It filled 90% of the 500-pound bombs that would fuel the impossible 1,000 bomber raids of the 8th Air Force. It filled 100% of the 2,000-pound blockbuster bombs that would erase German industry. The mark of shame was now the workhorse of the entire Allied war effort, and now the crazy idea, the stupid fertilizer mix, meets the other Goliath, the other expert system. The German High Command, February 1943, Kasserine Pass, North Africa. The expert U.S. Army is in a panic. They are in a full terrified retreat. They have just been annihilated by Rommel's expert Afrika Korps. The by-the-book American GIs have dropped everything and run, and the expert Wehrmacht ordnance units, the German Goliaths of technical intelligence, move in to mop up. They are tinkerers too. They are hunters for Allied secrets. Hauptmann, Captain Erich Kessler, a by-the-book German chemical engineer, is baffled. He is walking through an abandoned American artillery position, but the Americans, they didn't run. They vanished, and they left everything. Thousands of 105-meter shells stacked in impossible mountains. It's a trap, his lieutenant whispers. It must be. No, Kessler says, his expert mind racing. They ran. They fled. But why would they leave? So much gold? He walks over to a stack of shells. He looks at them, and he laughs. He actually genuinely laughs. His lieutenant is baffled. Sir, what is it? Kessler points. Look at this shameful American craftsmanship. He points at the purple stripe. And look at this. It's waxy. It stinks. He confiscates a dozen of the purple stripe shells. He sends them top priority to his expert the boardroom in Berlin. March 1943, the expert German Ordnance Laboratory, the Goliath of German expert science. A man named Dr. Strunz has his report. He is giddy. He is baffled with joy. He is about to present the impossible, crazy, good news to the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, OKW. Gentlemen, Strunz announces to a boardroom of by-the-book German generals. We have won the production war. I have irrefutable chemical proof. The generals are silent. What proof, Doctor? Strunz holds up the American shell. This is the purple stripe. We have analyzed it, and, gentlemen, the Americans, they are fools. They are amateurs. He lays out the expert German validation. First, it is not pure TNT. It is a filthy, diluted mix. It is Amatol, a World War I explosive. Second, it is weak. It is only 80% as powerful as our expert hexagen. Third, and this is the punchline, gentlemen, it is cut with ammonium nitrate, a common fertilizer. And fourth, to stop it from dissolving, they have mixed it with paraffin wax. The boardroom of German generals laughs. The Goliath of expert German arrogance is born. Do you understand what this means? Strunz says, his voice triumphant. The arsenal of democracy is a sham. The Americans are not brawlers. They are weak. They are desperate. They are running out of explosives. They are scraping the bottom of the barrel. They are stuffing their bombs with plant food and jelly wax. This was the crazy tactic. In reverse, the unlikely hero, Andy Miller, had fooled his own Goliath, the U.S. Ordnance Corps. And now, the byproduct of that crazy idea, the purple stripe, had fooled the enemy, Goliath too, the German High Command, the expert system, now knew with 100% expert certainty that the Americans were weak and that expert arrogance was the real secret weapon. The expert German Goliath was now officially complacent. The crazy idea had worked too well. In the bunkers in Berlin, the expert doctors had proven with irrefutable science that the Americans were weak, amateur, and running out of explosives. The stupid fertilizer mix was the proof, and this expert arrogance, this Goliath of by-the-book hubris, was the single most powerful secret weapon the Allies possessed. The boardroom conflict was over. The laughter had been logged, and now the grand performance, the physical validation of the crazy idea, was about to begin. The unlikely heroes of Muscle Shoals, the farmers and tinkerers of the TVA, were now impossible giants. They were outproducing the entire expert Axis war machine, combined. The mark of shame, the purple stripe, was now on everything. And it was about to bury the Third Reich, the validation, Act 1, the air. This is the impossible math made real. The 8th Air Force, the expert American by-the-book solution to winning the war, was built on the Goliath B-17 Flying Fortress. And the expert plan was precision bombing. But the reality was Volume 8 by-the-book 1,000 bomber raid. The impossible dream of 1942 became a reality in 1944. Why? Not just because America could build 1,000 planes, but because Dr. Andy Miller's farmers could fill them. Let's go back to Lieutenant Frank P. Harris in the nose of his B-26 Marauder on the morning of D-Day. He is expertly dropping his purple stripe bombs on the Goliath of the Atlantic Wall. His bombs are Amatol 80-20, 80% stupid fertilizer, 20% precious TNT, and the expert Germans in that bunker, they don't care that it's weak. When a 500-pound fertilizer mix bomb explodes on your concrete roof, the 80% power is not a joke. It works now. Scale that up. The big week, February 1944, the expert plan to break the Luftwaffe. In 6 days, the 8th Air Force drops 10,000 tons of bombs on German expert aircraft factories. 90% of those bombs are Purple Stripe, Amatol the Oil Plan, 1944. The crazy idea to stop the German Goliath by starving it of fuel. This impossible plan requires the systematic destruction of expert German synthetic oil plants. The arsenal of democracy drops 500,000 tons of bombs on these targets. 450,000 of those tons are the stupid fertilizer mix and the Goliath's expert reaction. Bafflement. In his expert bunker in Berlin, Reichsminister Albert Speer, the Goliath of German production, is looking at his own impossible equation. I do not understand, he tells Hitler. Our experts told us the Americans were running out of explosives in 1943, and now they are drowning us in bombs. They are burying us. How? How are they making so much TNT? He never gets the punchline. He never understands. He is too expert. He cannot believe that he is being beaten by American hillbilly plant food. The crazy idea is so simple. It is the perfect deception. The Germans see the purple stripe, and they are still laughing at the weak Americans. As their factories collapse, the validation, Act 2, the ground. This is the climax of the impossible production, the Goliath of the Wehrmacht. Is the artillery, the expert German 88mm gun, and the American expert solution is the 105mm howitzer, the queen of the battle. And what feeds the queen? Not gold standard TNT. The queen is not a purist. The queen eats Amatol, the impossible equation of the Battle of the Bulge. The 101st Airborne, the battered bastards of Bastogne, are surrounded. They are the Goliath's prey, but they are not alone. They have the artillery, and the artillery has mountains of 105mm shells. Mountains that all have a purple stripe. When the expert German Volksgrenadiers charge, the unlikely hero American artillerymen fire. They fire so much, they melt their by-the-book gun barrels. They bury the Goliath in explosions. This is the impossible validation. The farmers at Muscle Shoals are winning the Battle of the Bulge. From Alabama, the expert by-the-book TNT Purist General Hardnose, is now silent. His shameful purple stripe bomb, the fertilizer mix he laughed at, has just saved the U.S. Army. And what of the unlikely hero? Dr. Andy Miller? He is not a farmer anymore. He is the Goliath killer. The expert Ordnance Corps needs him. They need his crazy a tinkerer's mind. The impossible problem, Phase 2.1944. The Ordnance Corps, boardroom. The Goliath is back. But this time, it's the Japanese. The expert Japanese aren't building Panther tanks. They are building bunkers, deep, impossible jungle bunkers, and the expert 500-pound fertilizer bomb is not enough. It's bouncing off. General Hardnose, who is now humbled, goes to the unlikely hero, Miller. We have a problem. Your fertilizer bomb. It's not big enough. Andy Miller, the farmer, chuckles. Well, General, then I reckon we need a bigger fertilizer. This is the crazy idea, Phase 2. The expert system says we need a better explosive. A new gold standard. The unlikely hero says, no, you need a new mix. And Andy Miller, the tinkerer, invents it, and he fools the system again. What if, he says, we take our stupid fertilizer mix, our Amatol, and we add something else? He invents a new crazy shopping list or cocktail, Minol, Amatol, mixed with aluminum powder. A crazy dust that doubles the blast pressure, Torpex, TNT. mixed with aluminum powder and other crazy ingredients. An impossible slurry that is 1.5 times more powerful than pure TNT. And the Goliath killer itself, Composition B, a crazier cocktail of TNT and RDX poured into the shell as a slurry, a tinkerer's manufacturing shortcut that becomes the new gold standard. The unlikely hero, the farmer from Alabama, has just beaten the expert Goliath of German science at its own game. He has invented the next generation of expert explosives. Out of junk, the stupid fertilizer mix has now evolved. It is not weaker anymore. It is stronger. It is better. And it is still the only thing they can make. In the millions of tons they need, the validation is complete. The mark of shame, the purple stripe, is no longer shameful. It is the mark of victory. It is the badge of honor of the unlikely hero. It is the secret that the Goliath never understood. The expert Germans went to their graves, still believing that they were beaten by fools who had run out of bombs. They were half right. They were fools, but they were fools who had been drowned in 1.5 million tons of plant food. The war in Europe ended on May 8, 1945. The war in the Pacific ended by a different, impossible expert weapon, finished 3 months later. The arsenal of democracy had, in the end, drowned the world in Goliath weapons. In the Goliath of the German expert system, never understood what hit him. Reichsminister Albert Speer, the Goliath of German production, was interrogated after the war. He was a broken man. He was still baffled. We could not compete, he told his American interrogators. Our expert hexagen was better. It was stronger, but you buried us. We calculated your TNT production. It was impossible. We knew. You could not produce that much. It was not possible. He was right. It was impossible. It was impossible. For experts, but it was not impossible. For farmers, Speer the Goliath went to his grave, never knowing the punchline. He never knew that he, the expert genius of the Third Reich, had been outproduced, outfoxed, and outwitted by a hillbilly fertilizer plant in Alabama. The crazy idea, the stupid fertilizer mix, had been so stupid that the expert Goliath could not see it. And what of the unlikely hero? Dr. Andrew M. Andy Miller, the spooky smith of explosives? There were no parades for him. There were no medals of honor. When the war ended, the expert by-the-book Ordnance Corps immediately reclassified its Goliath gold standard. Pure TNT was king again, and the ghost factory? Muscle Shoals Plant No. 2? The impossible Goliath killer that had saved the arsenal of democracy? The expert system, in its infinite wisdom, shut it down. The farmers of the TVA were thanked for their service and told to go back to the farm. Andy Miller, the humble hero, did just that. He went back to his quiet New Deal job. He went back to his real passion. He went back to making fertilizer. The unlikely hero wanted to be a farmer, not a weapons maker. He and the Goliath of the TVA spent the rest of their lives feeding the hungry world with the same ammonium nitrate that had armed the free world. It was the humble hero's full circle. The secret was safe. The crazy idea was buried again, but the legacy, the moral of the stupid fertilizer mix, could not be buried because Andy Miller's crazy idea was too good. The expert Goliath of the Ordnance Corps had been forced to learn. The moral was not complex. It was simple farmer math. Goliath, the expert system, was wrong. The expert said, we need an A+ gold standard weapon. The unlikely hero said, no, you need a B good enough solution that you can make 1 million tons of. This was the real secret of the arsenal of democracy. It was not expert perfection. It was tinkerer, spooky smith volume. It was the crazy idea that good enough right now and a lot of it, always. It beats perfect too late and none of it. The mark of shame. The purple stripe was not a badge of dishonor. It was the badge of victory. It was the badge of pragmatism. It was the badge of the unlikely hero, and the crazy idea became the expert Goliath. The expert Ordnance Corps did go back to pure TNT for about 5 minutes, and then Korea happened, and then the Cold War happened, and the impossible production math returned, and the expert Goliath of the new US Army had to relearn the crazy farmer's lesson, and this time they embraced it. The legacy of the stupid fertilizer mix is everything. First, the mix. The crazy idea of diluting TNT became the new expert gold standard. Andy Miller's other crazy cocktail, Composition B, the slurry of RDX and TNT, became the primary expert explosive for the entire US military. For the next 50 years, every shell in Vietnam, every bomb in the Cold War, was a direct descendant of the crazy fertilizer cocktail. The unlikely hero's shortcut became the expert's highway. Second, the fertilizer itself. Ammonium nitrate, the stupid plant food. What happened to it? The expert Goliath of by-the-book munitions stopped laughing at it, and the expert Goliath of commercial explosives started tinkering. The full circle. In 1955, a different unlikely hero, a tinkerer named Melvin Cook, stole the farmer's crazy idea and mixed the stupid ammonium nitrate with diesel fuel. He stuffed it in a cardboard tube, and has invented ANFO, ammonium nitrate fuel oil, and that crazy fertilizer mix, the direct descendant of Andy Miller's and Waxy Bag, is now the Goliath. It is the most common, most used, expert industrial explosive. On planet Earth, the legacy is complete. The entire modern world. The tunnels we drive through, the mines that feed our Goliath system, are all built with the farmer's stupid fertilizer mix. The moral is absolute. The Goliath of expert by-the-book purity will always be beaten by the unlikely hero tinkerer who has a crazy idea and the impossible volume to back it up. The arsenal of democracy was a sham. It was a bluff. It was held together with waxy laundry bags and plant food. And that is the crazy punchline. That is the impossible genius. And that is why the Goliath lost.